We'll go to Shelley Garrett for the next question. Is there something happening in China's internal politics causing China to become more aggressive on several fronts? Hong Kong, the East and South China Sea, Xinjiang, etc.
That's a that's a that's a very important question, and it's because usually when you see a country kind of misbehaving uh, externally, you can bet that there are kind of pressures going on internally. And the trick is to figure out what they are and to understand the dynamics, and especially to understand the relationship between the external and internal. For example, a few years ago, I was surprised to learn that in China, on their equivalent of these uh, um, social media platforms, there was criticism of the Chinese government to the effect, why are you allowing the Vietnamese to get away with this? Why are we allowing them to push us around in what really should be our South China Sea? And, you know, there's cynicism to go halfway around the world on this. You could say the government is kind of pushing people to say stuff, and then the government says, oh, we have to act because our people want to. I mean, there's a lot of that, but don't discount the idea that if you're a citizen in China and you're basically not happy with the government, you may try to flank it on the nationalist side and not just on the, gee, government should be more liberal. So I do not rule out these things. I would have thought, and I did think, that Xi Jinping would have said, hey, enough already. We've turned good relations with Southeast Asian nations and turned them into bad relations because of our aggressiveness. We need to stop this. And he sure as heck hasn't stopped it at all. I mean, it's not just creating facts on the ground in these islands or islets around South China Sea. He's created the ground itself by, dumping dirt on them, on these atolls, and otherwise, creating more of China there. So I think the questioner is right to look at this, and I think it does happen. But I think one has to kind of hold the government accountable, whether or not it has pressures. And I remember in Iraq, I mean, you would hear all these excuses for everything, and it usually was the people don't want me to do that. Well, that's what leadership is about: is to convince people that you're doing something because for a greater good and for the country's greater good. And I just don't accept every politician who says I can't do this because my base doesn't want me to. I'm not making any current analogies with any politicians.
So this is a somewhat related question from George below. Question is, Xi Jinping not only has hardcore, in quotes, hardcore nationalists with an anti-colonialist bent, who are largely in the ascendancy, he also has hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Western educated bureaucrats who are not as hostile to the US or to Japan, India, and other Southeast and Northeast Asian countries. What chance, if any, is there for this alternative faction to gain more traction within the CCP?
Well, Xi Jinping is a very powerful leader, but I'm not sure I'd want to, if I were a US president, I'm not sure I'd want to switch inboxes, because I think he has, as the question implies, a lot of different forces behind him. I think the ones, if you look at polling data of the ones who come back from overseas education, they tend to be kind of hardline. If you look at the polling data of them, I wouldn't necessarily take that to heart. If I were coming back from, 4 years at some U.S. university, I might be careful not to say that I've bought the line there. At the same time, I think China has a lot of internal tensions. It's quite a nationalist country. I mean, you go to any city in China and you see flags everywhere, and don't assume they're all being put up by people in charge of the flag installers of the Communist Party. There's a lot of pride in China, and there's a lot of pride in the Olympic Games they had. There'll be a lot of pride in their Winter Olympics coming up. I mean, China it's a very prideful nation. And I think one has to be, understand that when you deal with them. And if you want to try to humiliate them publicly, you better anticipate what their next step might be. And I really think diplomacy, we need to get back to some traditional forms of diplomacy where you go in a room, you don't have to fill it up with cigarette smoke. Even the Chinese banned cigarettes at the foreign ministry. But, you shut the door, and what happens in the room should stay in the room until you have a real deal. And I think there's just too much of this idea that you have to repeat everything you've done in social media.